Lovely sound. We shall leave it there to breathe.
Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers.
I'll talk to you about that when I get home.
Okay, thanks, I think. Yes. Yes. Pretty grim, pretty grim.
Well, can we look in the yellow?
Dereliction.
Yeah.
to grab the
photo, because they need it.
the photo of the Dalai Lama.
Yeah.
We couldn't use a photograph of me.
They will have to if they can't get one of Dalai Lama.
Well, anyway.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry, I called Mr. David Bradbury here. Mr. David Bradbury, I thought you were in Nicaragua.
I know
Phone call from Nicaragua here about your plane bookings, Mr. Bradbury. Phone call from Mr. Gorbachev, who's hiding out in Nicaragua. Over to you with the phone there.
Hey, Gobby, look, we've got a bit of a problem with these capitalists down there in Managua. We've got to sort of get them out of there. Clear them out. It's not good enough.
Okay, no, that's enough. You reverse the charges. You're not talking to him anymore. Goodbye. Hey, one eye.
I'm at the office on 841 777 if you want to ring me. Thanks. Okay, let's do it. Okay, yeah, well, we left, my wife and my child and I left the city to go and look for some land to live. We were either going to buy some land on the coast of Australia, on the east coast of Australia, or we were going to do our next trip, which was to go and live in South America. We were going to do one or the other, and we did a 4-month trip up to Queensland, all the way up to Cairns, stayed there, and to cut a long story short, we fetched up buying 200 acres of land at Mullumbimby. We had a house in Sydney which we could sell, and which we did, and bought the land at Mullumbimby, 200 acres, and we bought it with the intention of forming a community on it. This was 1972. This was we were dropping out. I was 23 years old, I think, and we had a young child, and we wanted to go and live on the land, back to Mother Earth, live in a community, get away from the city, drop all those values of materialism and consumerism, and get back to the natural life. We would drop out. We were hippies. We were dropouts of the early 70s, and that's what we did. We came to live in Mullumbimby. We were one of the first people there. In 1972, Colin Scattergood came up and bought 400 acres of land in Maynarm. Chris and David McElrath bought their property, which I think was about 500 acres. I bought 200 acres. The people up the top end of Maynarm, Damien Wilkinson, Jim Nutter, Searle and others, founded Narada up at the top end of Maynarm. That was also in 72, and I started up the Barter. We had the Barter, we had the Co-op and the Barter in Cooper's Lane, very colourful. The first market, the first alternative market ever in the area. We're into early 73 now when this was happening, and the entire alternative community would show up. There were probably only 100 or 200 of us at that stage. Just as when there was a moon dance, every full moon there was a moon dance at the old Rumble Hall, and everybody would go, the kids and everybody. It would be a real gathering of the entire sort of alternative community. And you have to remember that the population of Maynarm in those days, of course, was very, very small to what it is now. And
how were you received by the locals that you moved into?
Oh, rurally very well. In the town, with some measure of suspicion. But never in an overtly hostile way. I mean, obviously there were, some hostile remarks inevitably, but never in an overtly hostile manner, and certainly not by the banana farmers or the old cockies up, and the old farmers up up in Maynarm, they were very accepting and very interested and very amused and very communicative, and we talked to them and they talked to us, and we lived in their old sheds and we lived in their old bales and converted them, and it was coming back to the land. And I mean, there were lots of exchanges, of course. They laughed and laughed and laughed at us and our funny ways and our attempts to till the land and make it work for us, and our community ideals and one thing and another. And I guess they learned from us too. They were by and large, they were interested. They'd lived relatively remote lives. It's hard to imagine these days, but you know, Maynarm is still fairly remote, certainly compared to what it is today. And so they were very glad to have contact with with new and different people. What happened next was Nimbin. And originally, there's a little-known fact that Maynarm was the dropout centre of Australia at that time. It really was. It became, in 1973, it became the dropout centre of Australia. In early 73, we had people up from the National Union of Students, the NUS, or Australian Union of Students, in Canberra. They were going to get, Whitlam had just been elected. They had money to put on a special Labor government grants to put on a big show, because the Canberra University, the National University in Canberra, would have a festival every 2 years. I'd been to the one in 1971, I remember, and fallen fast asleep in a film down there. But they wanted to buy some land or get onto some land and have a Back to Mother Earth festival. Of course, a lot of that is history now, but their first thing they wanted to do was to do it on Colin Scattergood's property in Maynarm. 400 acres, perfect. Beautiful creeks, beautiful area, dropout centre of Australia, you name it. This is the place to do it. And when we heard, those of us who were living in the valley, that this was afoot, we got up there and we said, no way at all. The last thing on earth we want is busloads of bloody students coming up from Melbourne and Sydney and God knows where and pouring into the valley and trampling over us and all our ideals and our freedom and our... We dropped out. We were out of it. We didn't want any of that rat race coming up here. We told them to get the hell out of the valley, go find somewhere else, which they did. And they finally, of course, as history now tells, settled on Nimbin. And Nimbin itself was very much a subject of the that depopulation that I was just referring to in Maynarm. It was had been a big town in the 30s and 40s. It had a huge hall, it had a huge buttery, it had a huge pub, it had big buildings, all closed up. All of them, not the pub, but a lot of the buildings all closed down, and so they decided to recycle Nimbin. And did they recycle it? And we all got very involved in there. I went and lived over in Nimbin in the end for about 12 weeks, 3 months before the festival. I built a tree house and lived in a tree with my wife and my child, and in fact we had another sort of child with us, as it was in those days. You travelled, you know, sometimes with 5 children and sometimes with none. They all got sort of moved around, and we all looked after each other's. And we lived there for 3 months before the festival, working every day. We got paid $1 a day, and we got fed. Every night we go up to the Rainbow Cafe in Nimbin, and there'd be maybe 50, well, about 20 or 30 to start with, then it was 50, then it was 100, then it was 200. It was really getting a bit out of control by then. We were building the sort of bush lavatories and the sauna bars and stockpiling, you know, wood piles. We painting the town. There was a lot of work to do, and we'd have a free meal, so we got fed every night. We had this big meal, and if we really broke, we could get some, you know, sandwiches and stuff for lunch as well, and then we were just expected to work, and we were paid this nominal $1 a day, which is I can't actually ever remember picking it up, but we were entitled to $1 a day anyway.